You have the electrophoresis dilution worksheet. Okay, so if you could make sure you have that. Let me see. I'm going to start on question 1. And again, like I did last week, I'm going to choose 2 examples to go through. And one of them I'm going to slightly modify so that we're actually doing the calculations we need to for making our gel. How does that sound? Okay, so the first one, question 1, we have a student wants to make 200 milliliters of 1x TAE buffer from a 50x stock solution. So in your boxes, you have a 15 milliliter conical tube with 50x TAE buffer. And then you also have some agarose in there as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to make 200 milliliters of 1x TAE from the concentrated 50x TAE. So we're going to be using our formula C1V1 equals C2V2, just like we did last week. Okay, so our concentration 1, that's going to be our 50x. So I'm going to write that 50x. V1, that's what we're trying to figure out. Remember, we need to know how much of the concentrated TAE buffer we need to add, and then add water to the desired final volume. So I'm going to put V1 equals C2 is 1x. We always want to dilute to 1x when dealing with that type of concentration. Last week we did C1V1, C2V2 with percentages. This week we're doing it with 50x TAE buffer, and we want to make 200 milliliters. So again, just like we did last week, we're going to divide both sides by 50x to isolate volume 1. And that's going to give us 4 milliliters. So for part B, what are the steps needed to do this? We're going to get a beaker. We're going to add 4 milliliters of concentrated TAE buffer. And then we're going to add water and bring that up to 200 milliliters. Okay, what we're not going to do is we're not going to get 200 milliliters of water and then add the 4 milliliters of the TAE, because then we would have a final volume of 204. And we talked about that last week as well. Okay, and let's go ahead and do number 2 while we're at it, and then we can actually make our reagents. So for number 2, I'm going to make a little change here, like I did last week. The gel box for the dye separation lab requires 80. Let's do that. You'll see why in a minute. 80 milliliters of 1% agarose. And we're going to make it with our 1x TAE buffer. So the way you want to do these types of problems is you want to do some cross multiplication, mass over volume. So I have 1 gram if I have 1 gram in 100 milliliters, that's a 1%. So I always have my students start with this when they're trying to figure it out, because it's very simple. You know, it's 1 out of 100 is 1%. And then we have our as blank grams to 80 milliliters. Everyone follow? Good. When I cross multiply, I get 80 equals 100x. Divide both sides by 100. And we get x equals 0.8 grams. So the reason I adjusted this is if you now can find in your box your microcentrifuge tube labeled agarose. And notice it's conveniently, the mass of this is 0.8 grams. Okay, and I did this because I get, you know, some of you are at home, you probably don't have a scale sitting around. So we're going to use all 0.8 grams that are in here. And we're going to make 80 milliliters. And we're actually going to use about 70 milliliters of it. And I'll explain that as well, because if you would find your, and this is all in a Ziploc bag for the electrophoresis lab, the soap box and the comb. And then I believe what you're also going to need is if you have any masking tape around or Scotch tape. Let me show you why. So if you take your comb and you set it, see, I have it on the box and I have about enough room for my finger. So you don't want the comb at this very, very top of the box. You want it down a couple centimeters. But if you notice when you squeeze it in, when you push it in, it's a little bigger than the box. And I'm assuming this is the same for everyone that has this issue that I'm having.
It is. Sorry about that, everybody.
So, and we can't have that. We can't have it popping out. We can't have any of these weird forces. We can't sit here and hold this while it solidifies, because again, as soon as we let go, it's wanting to pop out. So I think the easiest thing to do, and again, the gel comb is a couple, you know, 2 to 4 centimeters from the top, is push it in and then use the tape over the top to hold it down.
Mr. Pedersen.
Yes.
So the comb does not reach the bottom of the box by
Correct.
on mine.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, we don't want it to reach the bottom of the box.
I just wanted to make sure that was okay.
Yeah, so it should be off the bottom of the box. And I'm gonna wait a minute, make sure everyone's good with that, because that's very important. I'm going to get out my 50x TAE, which is in the conical tube labeled 50x TAE. And so while you're doing that, just as a reminder, electrophoresis is a way of separating molecules using electricity. So you can separate proteins, you can separate DNA, and other biomolecules. We're going to be separating dyes in our final session. And you also do this, you exploit the charge of the molecule. Okay, for example, DNA is negatively charged. So when we run the electrophoresis, we have the end that the DNA is at is the negative electrode, and that forces the DNA through the agarose. The larger molecules stop at the top, the smaller ones migrate further through the matrix. And this is probably just a little review for everyone, but I thought that would be important to mention while we're getting all of our stuff situated. So this one's really cool. Next week, we're going to use a battery array, a 9-volt battery array as our power supply. So this is electrophoresis on a budget. You know, everyone can do it. You don't need a $300 chamber and a $700 power supply to do it. Okay, everyone feel good? I just don't want to go too fast through this part. Okay, we have our box set up. We have our 50X TAE. And we are now ready to make the 200 milliliters of our 1X. Now, what's the purpose of the TAE? The purpose is that it conducts the electricity really well, and it also prevents the gel from melting, which can happen. Okay, so that's the purpose of this buffer. So I'm going to make mine in the beakers that were provided in your box. I need 4 milliliters. I'm actually just going to pour it straight out of the conical tube. So I was given 7. So I'm going to put 4 milliliters of that. This is very forgiving. Okay, so we don't need to be too stressed out about, oh, I put, 4.5 or something. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Oops, I put a little too much. Oh, well. It's not going to do anything at all. So I put a little over 4 milliliters in here, and now we're going to, I'm going to go add water and bring it up to 200 milliliters. I'm going to add tap water and bring it up to 200 milliliters. Okay, and while everyone's doing that, I'll tell you one of the number one mistakes my students make is they will make their gels with water, with just water. But our gels are made with 1X TAE. So we're going to be using the 1X TAE that we just diluted from 50X to make our agarose gel. So I'm going to get out a second beaker. Anyone need me to slow down? Pause for a minute? Or am I good? All right, cool. So I'm going to use my graduated cylinder. going to add now. Let me tell you this. Technically, what I should do is add a like 40 to 50, a volume less than our final volume. This is technically, I should do that. Then I should add the agarose, and then I should bring the volume up to 80. Okay. Otherwise, if I take 80 milliliters and dump in my 0.8 of a gram of agarose, it'll displace some of the water, leading to a volume greater than 80. However, honestly, for this small amount, that would be very negligible. So I'll let you choose exactly how you want to do it, but the fully correct way to do this would be add a volume of buffer less than 80, then add my powder, which is agarose, which comes from plants. Okay. Add it, then bring it up to 80, and then I'll talk to you about heating it up. So hopefully at least everyone has access to a microwave or something. So I'll be right back. I'm going to go do that over the sink.
He said he added the agarose to the graduated cylinder, right? All of it?
Yes, we added all of it, and we purposefully did that calculation, that practice calculation, so we could simply add it all, because again, I didn't know. I can tell some teachers may not be in their classrooms, so I didn't know if everyone had a scale. All right, so I'm gonna now add mine to this beaker. And I'm putting it in the beaker because I'm gonna heat this beaker. And yes, it's plastic, but I've done this many, many times. This will be okay all the time. Because what we're gonna do is we're going to take this. I'm gonna use a microwave. Obviously, I think everyone's gonna use a microwave. You wouldn't want to use a hot plate with this, but it's fine in the microwave. I'm gonna go hit it for pop it in, and I'm gonna watch it. And as soon as I see it begin to boil, even close to a boil, I'm gonna pull it out and swirl it. And then I'm gonna come back here and explain for pouring.
Just a question, Michael. Michael, just a question. So we add the agarose to 4 milliliters of water?
So you're adding the agarose to the to a final volume of 80 milliliters of the 1X TAE buffer we made.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so we made 200 milliliters of TAE, and it's 1X. And again, the students are going to want to do this and just make it with water. You have to remind them that the gel itself is made with 1X TAE. So what I have in here is 80 milliliters, and I have the agarose in here as well, the 0.8 of a gram. I'm going to step away here in a minute, microwave it, get it to a boil. Be careful because it will flash boil very quickly. So you don't want it, you don't need to do all that. You just get it to a boil, and then I'm just going to swirl it. I'm not even going to go stir it with anything. I'm going to swirl it real good. And then we're going to cast our gel, but you need to have your comb taped in and all ready to go. And that comb should go about 3/4 of the way down into the soap dish. All right, I'll be right back.
About how long did you have to make it for?
I had it for 50 seconds.
Okay,
I
because I
went-
can't really see it boiling in the microwave.
Yeah, I went about 50 seconds, and when I opened it, I could tell it was
right,
had started
maybe
to
I-
boil.
Okay, I probably need to put mine for a little bit longer. It's hot, but I don't know if it got to boiling.
Mine was 50 seconds too.
Oh, okay. So while we're getting ready to pour them, if you have access to more expensive equipment and things like that, for example, the gels that we run, we make a big deal out of students not pouring the gel until it hits about 55 degrees Celsius. Anything hotter than that, and it'll warp the plate, and the plates that we use are very expensive. But we're in luck because we're using a soap box. So we have no stress over that. We do want to be mindful of the time so that our gel does not begin to re-solidify. Make sure there's no translucent bits floating around. It looks good to me. So if everyone's okay with this, I'm going to go ahead and pour mine. And my goal, I thought about 70 mils was going to be good. Now we made 80, and 80 seemed, because we need room on the top for a little bit of buffer. And I'll explain that. But right now I'm just slowly pouring, nice and slow. Everything's looking good. My comb is still holding. I put all of mine in. I don't think it'll be an issue.
Mark, I had to step out just for a second. Do we need to make it all the way dissolved? It's really hard to see inside of my microwave. Like I can't see it, so I'm
Yes.
having to just judge, and I open it back up and it seems to be not dissolving all the way. Do I need it all the way dissolved?
Yes, you do need it all the way dissolved. We found that 50 seconds, 50 to 60 seconds was good. Okay, so obviously you don't want to disturb it, just let it be. They solidify pretty quickly, but I think our best bet is going to be, I'm thinking, because I don't want to just sit here and stare at the gel while it solidifies. Ideally, what I want to do is have the gel solidify and then pour a small amount. Let me get it. So basically, the issue is we're using the gel next week, right? So we need to store it and make sure it doesn't dry out and things like that. So once the gel solidifies, and it's just going to take a while because it's such a thick gel, thicker than normal. With some of the other boxes we've used it, about 50 milliliters is enough, but we have 80, so it's going to take longer. But what we're going to want to do when it solidifies is carefully, if you look at my comb here, you want to carefully wiggle it back and forth while pulling up, and the comb will pop right out once it has solidified. Okay, I'm going to show you again. You just kind of, once it's solidified, you untape it, grab the comb, wiggle it while pulling up, and it'll come right out, and it'll leave all of the wells on the gel that we're going to be pipetting into next week. After we remove the comb, ideally I was gonna, now everyone, pour a little bit of the 1X TAE over the top of it and into the wells. It doesn't matter how much, just a little bit in here once it's solidified and we take the comb out, a little bit of the 1X TAE, get it on the surface and into the wells. This helps to preserve the agarose for next week. Then we're in luck again because we have a soap box with a lid. We can close the lid with the little bit of liquid on the top. It's not going to hurt anything. You want just a small layer of 1X TAE. Then we're going to close the top, and we can even put the whole thing into a Ziploc bag and into the refrigerator until next Tuesday. Does anyone have any questions about that? Because honestly, it's solidifying slowly. So it would be something you could do tomorrow if you wanted. For example, you don't have to sit here. It's not that big of a deal. You can do it tomorrow. Pour the liquid, pour the TAE over the top, close the box, put the box into a Ziploc, and put that into the refrigerator until next Tuesday, and you'll be fine if you do it tomorrow morning.
So if we leave it till tomorrow morning and let it solidify overnight, is that fine at counter temperature, or should we put it like in a fridge? What do we do?
I mean, it'll be fine in the counter
Okay.
temp. It'll be perfectly fine.
Perfect.
So our students, usually when we make them, we cast them, we slide them off the tray and straight into a Ziploc bag.
I could come in the morning.
But since it's going to be a week until we use them, let's put a little 1X TAE on the top once you
Okay.
take the comb out. And again, that can all be done tomorrow. The TAE can sit at room temp as well.
Do we pour the TAE into like our bottle to keep it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, I believe Megan had sent out an email if you have a bottle or something that you can keep your TAE in, because we're going to need that TAE buffer next week for electrophoresis.
And does the 1X TAE buffer go in the fridge as well?
It can, but it can just sit at room temp. Honestly, it can sit at room temperature for a week. We never refrigerate any of ours. But the gels, they need to go in or they'll start drying out. And so, are there any other questions? Because other than waiting, which I wouldn't bother, I would do it in the morning, honestly, but it's up to you. Are there any questions about once it solidifies? No? Okay. And Megan, I doubt you don't have anything, do you? Because it's 6 o'clock and we've accomplished all of our lab work that we need to. We just need to make sure, tomorrow morning or later, once it solidifies, we take care of it like I mentioned.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. So you guys, if you do not have any questions, feel free to log off. I hope you have a wonderful evening. But we have set the scene now for next week's electrophoresis. So we're all done with our lab work for the day.
Mr.
Okay.
Pedersen, do you think I can leave this out overnight? I totally forgot to bring a bottle in for this, and I'm looking around. I don't see anything I can put it in.
Yes, absolutely. You are perfectly fine leaving that out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, have a great week, everyone.
Very forgiving lab.
Yes, that's good. We like that. Yeah, Megan, this looks like it'll take a while.
Yeah. Well, and
So-
that's why we thought about just doing it this week so that they have it ready to go. And
that was a good call.
yeah,
That was
so we shouldn't run into anybody having a non-solidified gel at this point.
right, exactly.
Mhm.
That's a good idea.